I'm always filming B-roll of myself for my videos, but most of the time it's for such a specific purpose that it can't be reused in future videos. So today I'm going to be trying something a little bit different that could be really beneficial for myself and for other creators too. I'm going to start to put together a private library of generic B-roll footage that I can use in multiple videos. Kind of like my own little private stock footage library. So what I want to do today is break down the process of everything that I'm gonna do to make this happen. If it goes well, maybe it's something that you want to try for yourself, and if it totally flops, well, hopefully we learn something along the way. Either way, secure the cup, and let's get into it. Now, first things first, why do I think it's a good idea for content creators to make their own kind of like stock footage library? If you're the kind of creator who talks about similar subjects on a repeated basis, or you do some of the same things over and over again, having footage that can cover over a voiceover of those kinds of things can be extremely useful. And on YouTube, because the output is often a lot more frequent than in other types of media, it can be a lot of work to have to shoot stuff every single week that is custom tailored for that video. So if you think you can get away with using generic footage multiple times on different videos that talk about the same topic or talk about you doing the same thing, it can be really helpful. I think the first time that I ever kind of noticed someone doing this was with Matt Diavella. He'll be talking along and all of a sudden there will be a shot of him walking outside or something along those lines, and that shot will come up in multiple videos when he's talking either about being outside or sometimes even when he's talking about like mental health or whatever it happens to be. Using the same shots never bugged me as a viewer, and as long as it gets the point across, it saves him a ton of time to not have to go shoot that over and over and over again just to make it unique for that video. And of course you can actually use stock footage. So for example, again, going back to that footage of somebody walking, you could use somebody else walking if you wanted to, but it's kind of cool to have shots of yourself doing those things so that you can still be the subject of the video all the time. Not to mention that then you can tailor that shot to your style, your look, your preferences. Now, of course, the first step is going to be planning the shots that we want to get so that we have some kind of an idea of what we're trying to do once we get the camera out and ready to go. Originally, I had hoped to go outside and shoot 3 different locations for this kind of challenge so that I would have some kind of location variety, but as normal in the Pacific Northwest, it is raining like crazy and it's not supposed to stop all week, so we're gonna do it all inside the studio, but I've still got an idea. We're gonna do 3 different setups. So I've got one over on the chair next to my desk, and we're gonna do something like kind of reading, sipping coffee, those kinds of things. Then we're going to do one setup at the desk, so it's going to be things like editing photos, we'll do the keyboard and the mouse and that kind of stuff. And then behind me here, I've also got my workbench, so I'm gonna do some stuff up at the workbench. What I've already done is put together a bit of a shot list, just kind of a loose idea of some wides, some mediums, some close-ups, and then some like environmental things, so some like detail shots of things sitting on the desk or things on the workbench to kind of fill in the gaps so they can kind of be go-betweens. Ideally, each of these would be able to cut into its own sequence or could be used together. And then if this goes well, if this does become useful for me, I'll try and make a habit out of doing this every couple of months. Just take a day and shoot a couple of different folders full of B-roll so that I can start to build out my library even more. Now, of course, you can shoot this kind of stuff with whatever you happen to have on hand, but in my specific case, Zeiss hit me up recently and wanted to lend me their new Nano Prime cinema lenses. So I'm gonna be shooting everything on this set of 6 Nano Primes. These things are absolutely beautiful, so I figure I might as well put them to use. I only have them for a couple of days to try out, so this is gonna be the way that I'm testing them. We've got an 18, 35, 75, 24, 50, and 100. I said that in a weird order. They're all T1.5, so they're super, super bright lenses. The only catch is that one, I'm not used to them, so it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge for me to try and get used to them. And two, because they're cinema lenses, they are all manual, and I'm very used to being autofocus driven, so especially when I'm filming myself, I'm usually used to letting the camera do the work of catching my eye and that kind of stuff. So I've got a little bit of a system rigged up so that I can fix that, or so that I can get around that, but I think it's still going to be a bit of a challenge, but who doesn't love a challenge? As creatives, we've all been here. You've got this idea in your head, but you and your camera can only do so much. And sometimes the thing that you're imagining is literally impossible to pull off. That's where Artlist's new AI image and video generator comes in. You type out what you're imagining, and it actually creates it for you. You just choose from the list of visual styles, write your idea, enhance the prompt if you want, and boom, you've got an image. Once you're happy with an image, you can animate that into a video just like that. I've made flying squids, roaring lions, confused wizards on green screens, awesome heroes, and even just a change of scenery. And the best part, it's Artlist, so everything that you create is covered wherever you want to use it, and you get music, sound effects, LUTs, editing tools, and more all in the same place. This new tool is all about removing the barriers between your ideas and the content that you want to make. So give it a try for free by using the link down in the description. And a huge thank you to Artlist for sponsoring this video. First, we're gonna do the chair scene. The goal will be to get me reading a book and taking a sip of coffee, nothing too crazy. For gear, I'm shooting on the FX3 in the Camera Foundry Cineback rig that allows me to have a nice big V-mount battery on the back to power everything. Audio is a Sennheiser wireless kit with a 416 boomed overhead. I may not need audio, but I figured I might as well set it up just in case. For monitoring, I've got the Hollyland Pyro 7 on a friction arm so that I can see it whether I'm in front or behind the camera. My solution for the focus problem is to use the PD Movie Live Air wireless focus system, which technically does allow me to use autofocus, but I'm mostly going to be using the controller to set focus while in position, since LiDAR doesn't allow for face tracking. I'm going to try and use 2 different lenses in each setup so that I get the chance to use all 6 lenses throughout the day, starting with the 35mm on this shot for my widest shot of the scene. And I played around with using a 1/8 black mist filter from Nisi, and ultimately I decided that I did like how it looked. It is super subtle though. Compositionally, because the chair is so tucked in the corner, there's little to no depth to it. So I used the case from the Zeiss Nano primes as a bit of a foreground to kind of dirty the frame and cover up some of that white wall, and of course to add some depth. I was able to use my iPad to fiddle around with the lighting using the Sidus Link app and all of my aperture and Amaran lights that I have around the studio. Behind me in the scene is the lamp that has the B7C bulb in it that ended up set to 2700 Kelvin. The main key light is an Amaran 300C set to 4000 Kelvin, which is also what the camera white balance is set to so that it matches. And then I played around with some of my other lights around the studio at 5600 Kelvin to get a bit of a cooler ambient tone in the spots that weren't as lit up by the lamp or the key light. I also used my iPad and the monitor and control app so that I could start and stop recording without having to get up and go over to the camera again. Then I just kind of made up a little sequence of me walking in, sitting down, reading a bit, taking a sip of coffee, reading some more, and then getting up and leaving. And the reason that I wanted to create a sequence like this was so that it would be repeatable for the other angles, and it would make it easier for me to cut together and come up with some important close-up shots. Once I was happy with the full take of the wide shot, I switched to the 75mm lens to get in tighter. Then I pretty much just repeated that process, moving the camera wherever I needed to check off my shot list and any other shots that I thought might be important. In the end, I ended up with around 8 to 10 usable shots that can be cut together to make a little reading sequence. Here's what it looks like. For the next scene, I was set up at the workbench, but my idea was basically the same. I used the 24mm for my widest establishing shot from behind, and then one overhead shot that I didn't end up liking at all. The main light was my Amaran F22C that I have rigged up above my bench, and it was also a practical, but I also had the 300C to fill in from behind and a B7C in a lamp on the workbench. The biggest challenge with this scene was actually using the 100mm for all the tight shots. I had to get a bit creative with getting my camera in place, and I ended up filming from both sides just to give me more options. In the end, I definitely got a bunch of usable shots that go together like this. And finally, we have the desk scene. This time I started out with the 18mm as our main wide, and I decided to go without the 1/8 black mist just for fun on this one. Once I got the wide shot, I switched over to the 50mm for all the over the shoulder, close up, and detail shots, and I added a tube light from overhead to bring up the exposure on the front of my face, and it turned out like this. Now, it's important to remember that because these clips are intended to be my own little library, each of them are around a minute or so long of usable footage, even though what I just showed you was little pieces of them cut together into a sequence. So I don't have to use them as that full sequence or even a part of the sequence. I can use them in any way I want for all sorts of reasons. In terms of the process of getting all this footage, I will definitely be doing this again, setting aside a day once every couple of months or something like that, and coming out with 30 or so clips of reusable B-roll sounds like a great deal to me. The Zeiss Nano primes were really awesome to work with. The image quality that they produce is fantastic, and having the whole set meant that I could feel comfortable switching between lenses and still getting a consistent look, and Zeiss just knows how to make fantastic lenses. Trying to shoot on all cinema lenses while filming myself ended up being probably the most difficult part of the whole experience, but in the end it wasn't so bad. I'm glad that I ended up doing everything in the studio since I had a nice controlled scenario and I had all my other tools handy so I could make up for those hard things. If I was out in the field, it might be easier to go with something that has autofocus or bring somebody else out to help shoot for me. Color grading wise, I just threw something together quick and I opted for a dark, cozy, fairly clean look for now. But the nice thing about creating all these shots myself is that I can grade them however I need for the projects that I'm putting them into, because I shot them all in S-Log3 and I have all of that raw footage. Overall, while it was a really long day and I'm really tired, I think I came out with enough footage that I'm happy to call it a success, not to mention that it was great practice with lighting and with filming sequences, and I'm excited to continue to build my library in the future. But as always, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Is this something that you would try, or are you going to start building your stock library of reusable footage? Leave a comment down below, and on your way down, hit the like, subscribe, and bell notification button so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.